Well, as you can see, it's still the 2023 verdict studios. State elections we are looking at. And, of course, we've been bringing you, reports from here and there. We're still waiting for your own contribution as well. Pictures, there's a way you ask people to take those pictures.
Do a selfie with us in the background, your TV screen or whatever it is you're watching with us, take a selfie and email us 2023verdict@channelstv.com.
Because it's very, very important.
And also if there's something happening in your area, if the elections are peaceful, let's have videos or pictures. If something is happening, there's a disruption of violence, let's also have videos and pictures. And we're here to make sure we report as much as we can, as long as we verify all of these stories. So we're here to cover round the clock all about the 2023 governorship and state assembly elections. So get on Twitter, get on social media, bring out those phones and take real pictures. At least yours is going to be real time.
Exactly.
Real time.
Talking about real, don't forget, you can, whichever part of Nigeria you are at, I mean, we're happy to take them. The email address is right there on your screen. And I'm talking about the reality of your own videos. Some of them are coming, thick and fast. And we're definitely, as Geoffrey said, trying to make sure that we confirm them. Who is going to talk to whoever needs to be talked to help those who are in VGC to vote, because we're hearing reports about that. And of course, as soon as we have confirmation of that, we will let you know. And that's for those who are yet to vote. But some have voted.
Yeah,
two governorship candidates.
Yeah, we understand that the governorship, we saw earlier pictures of him walking down but I think he later spoke to, journalists. So we have the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Lagos State, Olajide Adediran, who voted earlier today. Let's take a listen to what he had to say after the exercise.
It's a process. This election is a process. It has a process. If we win, we go to the next process. If we win again, we go to the next process.
Well, we also understand the Labour governorship candidate in Lagos State, Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes Viva, did cast his vote earlier at the Ikeja area of Lagos State.
Well, we have made sure that we have a lot of agents, and we've done that. You see, we have an agent. We have an agent in most of these places. So we've done a lot. We've done a lot to ensure that we have structure on the ground.
Well,
and
okay.
My apologies, Geoffrey, the Ogun State governor, has also performed his civic duty both as a citizen and as governor of Ogun State. In his word, Itosin Ward 3, polling unit 2 in Iperu-Ikene local government area of the state. He was welcomed, of course, by residents and eligible voters in the area who also came around to perform their civic duties. Well, he spoke with journalists shortly after casting his vote and commended the peaceful manner that the voters have conducted themselves.
You know that I'm not an election observer. I'm the governor as well as being a candidate. And what I've simply done, I've left home, I've come here like everybody else, presented my permanent voter's card, duly accredited, and I've cast my vote. From what I've seen, people are casting their votes. From what I've seen, it appears as if everything has gone, relatively well thus far. I want to thank the Independent National Electoral Commission. Even though this election was postponed by a week, I want to thank them for being able to resolve the issues of litigation that was surrounding voting, and also being able to reprogram the BVS machines so that elections can go today. It's my hope that what I've seen at my polling unit is what is obtaining everywhere else. But until we get field reports, I cannot really comment on what's happening outside my polling units.
Also understand in the South-South region, the governor of Rivers State has also casted his vote in his polling unit, Korea local government area. You can see that video of him in the face cap putting in the ballot paper. Of course, 2 ballot papers, one for the governorship, one for House of Assembly. And not just him as well. We understand.
That's Unit 7, Ward 9, Obiakpo local government area.
But as you can see,
Okay.
Yeah, that's Rumo Pericom, that's his village.
That's, yes.
he chose to not, fold the ballot just in case.
Leave it as in its length. I guess
Exactly.
it's the style. We also understand other candidates of different parties, the Accord Party, Dumolulu Briggs as well, the PDP candidate there. Well, this is the Accord Party candidate, Dumolulu Briggs. He has had to bend this time because we have the box there on the floor. And he has done that.
Well, this is quite some work. And the Rivers State APC governorship candidate Tonyo Cole has also cast his vote at the Unit 2, Ward 12, Bamena Akukutoru local government area of Rivers State. So everyone is doing what needs to be done to ensure that we grow our democracy, and it's quite a salient aspect of the whole thing.
All right, we also understand just not too far away, but of course still in the same South-South, Cross River State Governor Professor Ben Ayade did cast his votes. Unit 3 in Ikbong Ward, that's in Obudu local government area. The governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade, has cast his votes, we understand as well. So both candidates, outgoing governors, incumbent governors.
For the Cross River State Governor, we understand that he commended INEC for the smooth process of the exercise. He said materials arrived at the centers on time, and he also explained the turnout, also encouraging all the voters, to come out before 2:30. Let's take a listen.
This is just about 12 minutes after 11 o'clock. I've just cast my vote. And indeed, voting started here at about 8:30, which is a major departure from the last experience. So it's quite early commencement of voting. And also to mention that the turnout is very massive. This is one of the one of the biggest polling units in Ipon Ward, in Cross River State here. But I'm happy that it's going on peacefully at this point. We still have challenges with the military making it difficult for people to access here, but hopefully we'll be able to get a large turnout since they've started quite early. Given that this is my last election that I am pretending as governor of Cross River State, voting as governor, I believe that I have done very well, and our candidate, Brasio 2, will win his elections. And with all due respect, I believe that the principle of equity and justice will prevail. And I'm happy with the turnout, happy with the commitment of my government to ensuring that we support the various agencies to deliver on their mandates.
Right, the governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade, talking about the very last election he's pretending over as governor of the state. And let's now head back to River State. We did see candidates of the party Accord and the governor, but we also have the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Siminilaye Fubara, right there speaking to journalists after exercising his franchise.
The machine is
very effective.
Very effective.
So I believe if every other unit around the LGA and in the states it goes this way, there will be a history election.
So I would like you to compare this to the presidential election. How is it, sir?
My people are really happy and they can't wait to deliver their brother. I think that should explain the excitement and the spirit you're feeling around here.
Well, that's, I mean, you did say the other time that it's both the incumbent and the aspirants. You still call them aspirants?
No,
aspiring
candidates.
Governors.
Yeah.
Aspiring governors.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not aspiring candidates.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what we have now. But we have a couple of gentlemen here with us in the studio to look at some of the issues that have arisen as a result of this conversation. Let me begin with Dr. Toby Oluwatola, who is Executive Director, Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Aya.
And also with us here is the Secretary General of Header Resource Center, Sulaiman Aribabu. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Just before we begin this conversation, we have
Dr. Alex Otse of the Labour Party in Abia State.
Well, the exercise here looks good in this polling unit here today. But I cannot say the same of many other polling units in the state, particularly, like I said, in Aba and Osisioma, parts of Osisioma, in parts of Unabo, they are loading Azande to side. Then parts of Obingwa, and then of course Isi Alangwa North and Isi Alangwa South.
Dr. Alex Oti of the People's Democratic Party.
Labour Party.
Labour Party
In Abia State. You know, Abia is also interesting because that's where we've seen our correspondent talk about the elderly coming out to, vote.
I mean, we've seen in Abia, we've seen in Ekiti as well, and a number of other places like that.
Yeah, but Isho mentioned also in the polling units where he's been in some parts of Lagos.
A little child also was brought to the polling unit to experience it before being a part of it. Yes. Well, we have a correspondent from Oyo State.
Yes, indeed, Bukola Oriowo. Oyo it's been interesting what we've been hearing from Oyo State in the last couple of days. A little worrying, some of the skirmishes and security there. But let's find out about the process of voting today. Bukola, what's the latest with the polling units opening at the time and security? Well, we might have to come back to our correspondent there.
You say I've been using battleground. That's another battleground, by the way.
It is.
That is a battleground. And the reasons are very obvious, you know. It was one of the G5 governors. I think he's the only G5 governor who is seeking re-election.
Well,
and there were a lot that happened during the National Assembly and presidential election, that a lot of flips, if you know what I mean, in terms of how the party turned out. And it's squaring up against some formidable people. So let's say it goes.
Just to ensure that the process is going the way it's supposed to be. And this angle is also very important. But let our guests speak to that. Let me begin with you, Mr. Aribabu. From what you have seen and heard, before you came to the studio, you have been doing some observing. Yeah. And I'm certain, not almost, certain that as soon as you're done here, you're back to observing. What are the things you have observed, in line perhaps with some of the things that we've reported so far?
Yeah, thank you very much. From Surulere up to here, I've visited a number of polling units. And of course, by now everybody can establish that INEC appear to have improved with their logistics. In most places, the voting started between, say, about 8:30, 9. So in terms of logistics, and we're not having those teething problems of, they forgot stamp, or they didn't stamp in ink and all those. So I think INEC has largely upped its game. The voter turnout is something I try to avoid from experience until the stats are out, because really you can't tell. But yes, you can see that compared to 25th of February, there were fewer number of people at the polling units. Perhaps it's because it rained last night and people decided to sleep a little longer. Or perhaps because they feel, INEC won't come early anyway, let me wait a while, let me tarry. Or perhaps it's because of all the heightened, security information and all of that. So as the day progresses, we might see whether more people will turn out. In terms of the security presence, I'll say that like your earlier guest, Dr. Kabir, mentioned about the concentric circle, I can say that the external areas are a bit more secure. But when you go to the polling unit, yes, of course, the police are not expected to carry firearms. But we're expecting that from the experience of the 25th, that today you will see policemen who are more on the alert, one, who will have walkie-talkie, And I expect at least who will use their phone effectively. So in my personal opinion, if at the end of the day, the verdict on today's exercise is that security did not live up to expectation, one would expect that the police at least should be able to give us evidence of those who disrupted. So it's totally useless if we have 3, 4, or any single policeman, security enforcement personnel in a polling unit, and non-state actors come in to disrupt the process, and in the least you cannot even give us a picture or a video. Then what's the whole point, of having them there? But in terms of INEC, I can say that they appear to be ticking the box, but we'll still see what the reports from around the country will look like.
Dr. Luatola.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with my colleague, Mr. Eric Bagbo, that our observers are in about 30 of the states that are voting today. There are, for those who do not know, voting is happening in all 36 states, but only in 28 states do we have gubernatorial elections going on because the rest are off cycle. And the reports that we're getting this time around relative to 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I meant to say, is that INEC is improved on logistics. In many cases where our observers visited, INEC got there on time and was waiting for voters to show up. And like Mr. Ribabu rightly said, we shouldn't be too hasty to conclude that this means that voter apathy is the case, or that the turnout in the end will be depressed. But it does indicate that INEC has improved their game a little bit, and I guess that also should be a motivation for people to come out and exercise their civic duties and vote. On the subject of security, I think what we've seen is that there are pockets of violence and voter suppression, especially in a few hot-button states, what Geoffrey calls the battleground states. I think that battleground states doesn't necessarily refer to violence. It refers to the fact that the race is very competitive, and we have quite a number of competitive races. There are 11 governors who are trying to get re-elected, and many of them have gotten a rude scare that the voters are really angry and the voters want change from 3 weeks ago.
We'll have to speak to that a little more, because we always get to this point, when it's only during the electoral process, in the pre-election time, that we have that kind of attention of politicians. But we'll talk a little more on that, perhaps something to give them some assignment ahead. But let's go back to Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, where Bukola Orewo, our correspondent, is trying to give us some updates. Bukola, can you hear us now?
I can hear you loud and clear. Good
Oh,
afternoon.
wonderful. So what's the update at this time, Bukola?
Well, I think there's quite a number of issues with low voter turnout still in the areas that we have visited here in Ibadan, and even some parts of Oyo and other zones in the state. But as the day progresses, we know that the turnout is getting a little bit more impressive. We spoke to one of the INEC staff earlier on, who also confirmed that by this time, during the presidential election, they have had like twice what they're having right now who have voted. But with me, I have an observer, the Director General of the Nigeria Institute of Policy Strategic Studies, Kuru Jos, who will also share with us what his experience has been since he has been monitoring the process. Good afternoon, Prof.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I will meet you, sir.
Well, I'm Professor Ayomotayo. I'm the Director General of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. I'm here because my organization is in partnership with the EU to observe elections. At this time, we have our fellows in 12 states of the Federation, 6 each from the 6 geopolitical zones, monitoring elections in 12 different states. I'm supposed to be in Abuja today, but because there is no governorship election going on in Abuja, I chose Oyo State for election observation. Thank you.
So far, from what you have seen, what did you deduce? What can you say is what is playing out since you started monitoring the election?
Okay, for the presidential election, the turnout was actually very large. The enthusiasm was huge. Not only as I observed in Abuja, but as also observed by our people all over the 12 states that we monitored. But today, it appears to be different. In Oyo State, up till 10 o'clock, the turnout has been so very low. And then we are hoping that before maybe 12-2, before we reach the end of polling, maybe more people will come out. But the good thing is that it has been generally peaceful. People have probably feared violence, and there has been no violence reported so far by all the teams that we have in Oyo State. We are taking reports from other parts of the country, and it still shows that this election has been very peaceful.
All right, so you are an academic. Apart from the obvious scare from violence, what can you say is usually responsible for voter apathy when we have situations like this?
Well, as an observer, I'm not supposed to say too much, but generally, if people hear, just hearing that there may be violence, they stay away from the elections. And of course, in many other elections, the voters are usually more interested in the presidential elections because they feel once the presidential election happens, the rest of the elections will follow suit. So when they don't think that their party has won at presidential level, there is usually voter apathy. And I think that is also what is turning out here today. There is nothing else to say. That should be the reasons.
Thank you so much, Prof, for your time, sir. Thank you, sir. There you have it. That's first-hand experience from those on the field who have also been monitoring the event. We're still here, still monitoring elections, and we hope that as the day progresses, we'll have more cheering news to share from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Over to you in the studio.
Bukola, given this report, it's quite interesting when we talk about low voter turnout. Maybe some might say it's not surprising, but Oyo State is quite a large state. It's saying there's Ogbomoso, there's Oyo Town, which you mentioned earlier, and quite a number of other areas. Is it the same thing, the same feel as you're getting from various other parts of the state? Oh, well, we'll definitely get back, hear back from Bukola on that one. Quite a tricky one. I mean,
yeah, I wanted to even find out from her, from the voters themselves, you know, it's also very good to get a feel of the people. What exactly are they feeling? What are they experiencing? What are their impression of the entire exercise? Because at the end of the day, it's about them. It's about the people. So as soon as we establish contact with our correspondent, Bukola, we will definitely get back to her to get a feel of what's happening in Oyo State. But I'll still have a guest here in the studio. Let me come to you. A bit of your impression of the exercise. Let's move from region to region. I'm sure you've been in Lagos. You've seen what's going on. You've had our correspondent talk from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. You've also seen us read, or heard us read, some of the elections happening in maybe Ogun State and all of that. So what's your general impression? Because at the end of the day, if we put them in blocks, we may have variations of outing and remarks at the end of the exercise.
Absolutely. So I think that based on what we've been seeing so far in a lot of the states that observers are out in, the election seems peaceful. We're getting reports from places like Taraba State, places like even Plateau State, which we expected to be a little heated, that have been somewhat positive, as well as Ogun State as well. You alluded to Oyo State earlier, that earlier in the week we had some incidences that sort of acted like a precursor of what might be a violent outcome today, but the reality on the ground, just like your correspondent rightly affirmed, is the reverse. And the same thing is happening in Sokoto State, where 3 weeks ago we had several elections cancelled and several undeclared at both at the Senate and 11 at the House of Reps, undeclared because of the outcome there. But today everything seems to be going to plan, voting seems to be happening, and the same thing in Rivers State. But then again, I think it's kind of early to tell, because this is still people coming out to vote. It's at the point where votes are being collated and votes are being counted. That's the point where people's sense of a lack of accountability starts to really play out. And I think that we have to sort of wait. We've seen isolated incidences of voter suppression in Lagos. In Imo, you reported earlier that there were some kidnapped officials, but thankfully the security forces stepped in on time.
All right, just one moment. The visual you're seeing is the APC governorship candidate for Kaduna State, Senator Ubasani, who is indeed going through the process of casting his vote in this election, the governorship and House of Assembly election that's also taking place in Kaduna today.
Once you're a public figure, everyone needs to get a feel of you. Once you're a public figure,
it's not just that you're a public figure. If you're one of the keen contestants, you're one of the frontline candidates. There are maybe 18 political parties in that. I don't know how many exactly, but of the 18, I'm sure there are people that they are focusing, but that doesn't mean the other ones are not important at the end of the day. So just to put it in perspective.
Well, Millicent, don't even go there, please. Well, Dr. Oluwatola, you were making that point about, what's happening in the various regions. I mean, Geoffrey asked about, your impression concerning the Southwest. I mean, we've talked about three. Okay, just before that, so hold that thought. Let's quickly get back to Kaduna State, where correspondent.
It appears there's a change of plan. He wanted to speak to the press.
He will, but they're trying to make way so that he'll have a comfortable spot. There's a lot of people milling around that particular polling unit.
We hope our cameraman can get a vantage spot.
And perhaps others as well who would. I'm sure they're also planning to vote at that particular polling unit. We're talking about one of the candidates for the elections there in Kaduna.
Well, this is what the people often say. That's African proverb. Okay, I think we're able to.
They got on a spot now.
Sorry, you are the APC governorship candidate. You've just exercised your franchise. How do you describe the process?
The process so far is going very smoothly. The report we are receiving from various local governments clearly shows that people have really come out to vote, particularly in some rural local governments. The turnout is very, very impressive. And I have no doubt in my mind that our supporters have really mobilized and our people have come out to vote for APC generally.
Do you have confidence in the process?
The confidence, the process is going very well. INEC have done extremely well. And the fact that they have decided to extend the election for at least a week, it makes them to properly organize the process, and the process have gone extremely well. I'm happy with the process, and I'm confident APC will win this election by the grace of God.
Well, that's the APC candidate in Kaduna State talking to the press. Certainly we'll give you more of that later on. So, Dr. Oluwatola, you were talking about the region. So Lagos, we've touched on Lagos, Ogun State, Oyo State. We've had feelers also from Ekiti State, where the vice president, cast his vote, and a number of places like that. What are you hearing from that region, southwest of Nigeria, in terms of the conduct general process?
So yeah, like you rightly said, we've heard from Ogun State, where we have a somewhat competitive race. All the opposition parties have come together against the ruling party. So we expect that there's a lot coming from there. Oyo State, we've heard from Oyo State as well as Lagos State. Ekiti and Osun State don't have they have an off-cycle process as well as Ondo State. So we're not hearing as much. It's a little more mellow what's happening in those states. But so far, based on what we've seen so far from our observers, it seems that it's the same story, that the process has been relatively peaceful, but INEC turned up on time in many of the polling units where observers have visited, and there hasn't been reports of real serious voter suppression or violence. I think the same recurring information we keep getting is that voter apathy seems to be the case in a lot of those states.
I know you also said that it's too early to say about voter apathy, but then it seems that for some of the states where the off-cycle elections are taking place, just House of Assembly, there are not a lot of people invested in that.
Nigerians tend to not really care as much what happens in the state legislatures because they don't really feel the effect of the state legislature. When there's a gubernatorial election, there's a presidential election, people are passionate about...
My apologies, Dr. Luatara. Is it that they don't feel the effect, that they don't even know the effect that they are having? Because there is no governor that can perform its duties without the legislature in the state.
Absolutely. I think that, and I think there is a wholesale sort of generalization of what the various levels of government represent. A lot of people think that the House of Assembly exists to provide infrastructure and to do the types of things that the executive does. And when they don't see that happening as much. And yes, they do have some responsibilities where constituency projects are concerned, but ultimately their job really is to act as accountability partners to the executive and check the executive. But so far we haven't seen the House of Assembly become very strong. It's the hope that we have that now that for the first time we've got 8 parties represented at the national level.
That's for the national.
That will start to change, but at the state level, it's hard to see.
Perhaps for now, but Jeffrey, you had questions, tons of questions about the legislature, and I'm sure you want to.
Yeah, because
but let me quickly just bring it to Mr. Aribabu, perhaps on the same the issue of state assembly elections. The concern is the understanding or otherwise of it for the people who are going to vote today. Most people are going to get 2 ballot papers, and they're just going to thumbprint, almost perhaps without knowing who exactly they're going to be voting for. They're just going to thumbprint for the party. The pictures of whoever are not there on the ballot.
Yeah. Well, like Dr. Toby said, the reality when it comes, the lower it gets in Nigeria, the less interest citizens appear to have. And I do agree with you that perhaps it's also because of the level of awareness, about the importance, of government. And that's why you see people blame the president for their local roads not being tarred or for drains not being cleared. Even where the ruling party at the center is not even the same at the state. And then when you look at the way politics have been played at state level, especially with state organized elections going strictly to one party, there is a lot of distrust, by citizens of governance at state level. So that's an issue that needs to be. And then, of course, because in our country, the one who holds power, who holds executive power, is seen as the ultimate. So you see, people are interested in governorship, really. They are interested in who the governor is because they know that's a lot of power. But they are also more interested in who the president is because they believe that, oh, it is in Abuja that they share the resources. So whatever is going to come to your state or come to you, a lot has to do with the powers of the president. So it means that we have a whole lot of work to do, because if people do not understand that they can make serious change to their quality of lives, to the delivery of governance to them at the state level through the state legislature, it's difficult to really have a functional society if people do not appreciate the importance of local government. So this is part of the reason why after this election we still need to go back to all those issues that we have been on. How do we ensure that local government remains relevant, to the lives of citizens? How do we do voter education for people? So, for instance, if in any states you have seen a situation where not the one that is orchestrated from Abuja, but where the legislature really says that, oh, things are not going right and we are going to be impeaching the governor, or somebody is being recalled, it's going to give a lot of confidence, to citizens.
I'm really waiting for that. I'm really waiting for that to happen.
Yeah,
because
I can always make it
that
happen.
conversation, for quite a while. Even the attempts that have been made, how successful or otherwise.
Ekiti was successful, Plateau was successful by Abuja, not by the people.
It's just for people now to now see it as something. But we have an update on that.
Yes, there's a lot. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the assembly, but let's hold off on it for a bit. Let's go back to the field where we'll be reporting. We told you we're ubiquitous. We'll be everywhere to ensure that we bring you all the stories across board. So be part of it as well. Send us pictures, send us videos. If there's violence in your area, we may not be that particular spot at that time, but if you let us know, we'll drive in and get that information out to the public. So wherever you are, just send us information across board. You will keep displaying how you can get across us on social media, just hashtag 2023 verdict. But the VGC area residents set up a field in a particular location to vote. That you see that picture there. We understand there are 8 polling units there, and the residents said that they have traditionally voted there for about 20 years. They even cited that the presidential election was done there, but to their surprise, the electoral umpire moved their polling units to outside the VGC gate. They are suspicious, in their words, of this move because they say it leaves them open to elements where elections could be disrupted by thugs and even hijacked. We understand that some of them have refused to vote.
Well,
that's coming in from the VGC. So
we've been talking about that for a while. A number of people have been making videos and circulating all over the place. Some celebrities have also done that, putting their word out.
So apparently they are not ready to vote.
No, they are ready to vote. They are not willing to
vote.
Move their polling units to another location. If that had been communicated to them ahead of time, perhaps that would have been something for them to consider. So let INEC
again, communication from INEC.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about that over and over again. Why would you insist on that? And hey, it's very important that people know what is up. If there is a reason, the people deserve to know.
INEC should please speak out because it's their right to vote. And if they are suspicious for whatever reason, it's also their right to suspect.
Absolutely.
Given the trust gap, the trust deficit we suffer as a country, we hope that one day all of this will be in the past, but right now we have those issues. So if all of a sudden I voted 3 weeks ago and I come and my polling unit has been moved, what exactly is going on? That's exactly what
it's only natural for anyone to suspect.
Millicent?
There are about 8 polling units there, and it's also past 1 o'clock. At the time. Well, we'd like to take you now to Ogun State. We understand one of the candidates in that election has also exercised his franchise there. I believe it is Mr. Ladia Debutu, PDP candidate in Ogun State.
It's early days. Let us see when the counting begins, because that is when the true sense of what we have done comes to the fore. I'm encouraged with the turnout because people are truly affected and they're responding in a true desire to improve their lot. The question now is, will the system allow their votes to count?
We move to Ogun now in Anambra State. It's not the governorship election, but House of Assembly elections are taking place there. Our correspondent Joy brings us the latest.
We have a very clement weather here in Oka, the Anambra State capital. Here is polling unit 008, Aroma 1, with 2,470 voters. The turnout is not quite impressive if you see behind me, as against what happened here in February 25th during the election. But hopes are high that people will still come for this election. Now, aside the State Assembly election, there is also a rerun election in Ogbaro Federal Constituency, whereby the House of Reps election will take place also today. Remember, Anambra State is not having the governorship election. It will interest you to know that it was only yesterday that the incumbent administration of Professor Chukwuma Soludo clocked 1 year. And so it is clear that the crop of House of Assembly members he's been working with were inherited from the last administration of ex-governor Willie Obiano. This will be the first election, the House of Assembly election under his watch. There are a few things to note about this election. One, that INEC says they have configured over 1,000 beavers for this election, fully charged and ready for operation. And then for the police, they say that it's only the federal forces that are allowed to monitor this election, to provide security for this election. If you are a vigilante service, you have no place here. They've all been excluded from participating in this particular election, either by way of monitoring or providing security. It's only the federal forces. Now, here in this polling unit 008, Aroma 1, accreditation has been done for some people, verification has also been done for some people, and voting has commenced. Let us hear what some of the voters have to tell us about this particular election, how prepared, INEC has been for this particular election.
It's going on seamlessly, unlike the other one. I guess because of the, voter apathy, that is obvious. I don't know why, but it's moving on smoothly.
So you just voted?
Yeah.
And how do you feel casting your ballot?
I feel very, 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 very satisfied with the system and with myself. We should be able to be part, of the system that brings in good governance. I don't know how to express my feeling. I'm just very glad I'm able to vote and say my voice towards, this is a good governance issue.
No, I'm very glad. There's no violence here. There's no violence. At least everything's organized very well. But I think people should be very clear that they are voting for the conscience, for the conscience of the masses, for their future as well.
They have expressed their opinion, and they are very happy that there has not been any violence in this particular area. And we hope that it will also spread in other areas. There won't be violence, there won't be thuggery, and there won't be anything untoward. This election will hold free, fair, and credible. From polling unit 008, Aroma 1, Joy Odinye, reporting for Channels Television.
Joy Odinye there with the latest from Anambra State, where they are voting to elect their House of Assembly representatives. And let's go over now to a location in Lagos, where our correspondent Timothy Crown Aderibigbe brings us the latest from there. Timothy.
We are here at Osholu Secondary School in Iriwe community of Ojo local government area of Lagos State. On these premises, there are two polling units. One of them, 001, where the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Dr. Olajide Adediran, just cast his ballot. Getting to this community takes about 1 hour travel on water. It's a peaceful process here where party agents and observers commend the process. Timothy Crown, Aderibigbe, Channels Television News.
So we are looking at, what's happening in hinterland. We can call it that.
Yeah, I mean, who was it that was talking to us about that earlier? That, look, that's really where we have the voters. A lot of people are in that community. How many urban areas do we have in Nigeria? And it's the same thing all over the world. But right now, we also understand that Olu Phillips is on standby. I was trying to give us some updates earlier. Olu, what's new right now?
Ayo, what can be new? Everything is new. As far as these places are concerned, we are still around the Ajawest. So from the hinterland to the upper land, we're still in Ajawest area where we had pockets of violence, or not necessarily violence, but what you can call voter suppression. So there are no ballot box snatching, there are no ballot box stopping. But what we have done is a subtle suppression, disenfranchising people from coming to vote. We are on a street called Musli Akinsanya Street. If you know that name, it rings a bell. That's the managing director of the Lagos Parks Street, where we've heard stories of people being intimidated out if you're not voting for the ruling All Progressives Congress. And here's a snippet of what we are talking about. The Labour Party agent has just received a blow, a deck to his ear, and he's already bleeding. Let me show you what I mean. Look at his ears. Look at his ears. He's just been, because he wouldn't do what they want him to do, and he's saying to us that his life, he feels threatened, his life, he doesn't feel safe, and he needs to get out of this place. We've seen some military men are patrolling around this area, and we're hoping that this would help bring the kind of sanity that people who want to vote and cast their vote and exercise a franchise can do around here. It's a stronghold where we are, and there's no mind in what I know. We know, but we have to do our jobs. So, for instance, we're told that the last time during the presidential election, there were 2 polling units. One was there, one is there right now, which is this one. And the second one, if my cameraman, don't move too fast, cameraman, can you turn back to me? Just turn back to me. And the second one was in this hotel. But on this governorship election, the second one has been moved down. You see where it is down, right there in front of the strongman's house. And that may not mean anything, that could mean anything, that could mean anything, that could also mean nothing. But it meant that if you're going to vote, and you're going to vote in front of the strongman's house, you know what that means. This is happening live in Ajawa State. And so from Osolo Way to Asafari to Latif Salami, we have the same complaint of voters who have been harassed and beaten up and told, if you're not voting for the ruling party, get out of the polling unit. We have videos that we can send you much later after this, because we're getting those videos via other devices when we're wearing live on television. But this is what we have for you. Ayo, you have something else for me?
Yes. The question that I naturally want to ask is, where are the security officials that are supposed to ensure that people are able to exercise their franchise?
I give an example of what either the Electoral Act says or what we have in terms of voting opportunities. So you see a polling unit like this, and you see policemen who are not armed, just one arm, this one here and this one here. I don't know how much they can do in terms of warding off. Election should be elections. People should be able to say, my choice is this, my choice of candidate choice is this, my choice of vote is this. But it doesn't come as simple as that can be or should be. And this is a worry, a big worry. Initially, in February 25th, we saw a lot of logistics issues. We saw a lot of challenges, moving materials and all of that. Today, we've seen laxity, we've seen lethargy, and we have seen voter suppression. And you ask, we've prepared for years and beyond for a day like this, and we're still having this kind of situation. What does it really say as far as a voting country like this is, with the size of over a 200 million population, the most populous black nation in the world? We should actually get it right. I don't know what the reforms could be from this election, but INEC has got its job cut out for itself. The National Assembly has got its job cut out for itself. A situation whereby you have people who are not armed. Even the military detachment that are coming around here have told us clearly, we can't stay with you, we can only patrol. If we see pockets of violence or violence, then we can step in. So we're taking a chance to do this on the street of the strongman, and hoping that it stays at doing our job, and all of the apparatuses of government will be kicked in places like this, where we all know that will be a stronghold for any party to want to take. Remember what happened in presidential elections? All of these places were lost. The ruling party lost all of these places, and I'm sure, I think, maybe they don't want a repeat of that incident around here. Perhaps, Ayo.
Olu, we'll have to let you go. So, as we always say, we want you to remain safe wherever you are, because I know that that's not your last stop. You're still going to go to one or two other places. Just keep safe wherever you are right now, okay?
And when Ayo asked if something was new, I think his shirt is new.
Yeah, he has changed his shirt and removed it. Says
I noticed
it's
that.
a bulletproof.
Yeah, but it's also Olu, just keep going, all right?
All right.
Keep
Thank you. Thank you, Olu. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, but, it's also important to mention, I mean, this security thing is actually quite concerning, and we mentioned earlier that we're hoping that the police spokesman in Lagos will speak. Well, we've been able to reach out to the Commissioner of Police in Lagos, who says, well, he's going to speak to us later on. And most certainly expected, because, I mean, there have been quite a number of issues in various parts of the state. We've talked about Oshodi, we've talked about BBC.
We're hearing things from a more Dauphin area too as well.
Exactly. So he would want to compile all of that and give us a comprehensive report, so to speak.
But I wanted to talk to Oluwatobi on this particular issue, because I know that you're also tracking some issues that has to do with the election. And now, speaking to the violence, there are some electorates, because of what happened in the last election, they are coming out literally combat ready. Does this justify that disposition?
I think that people need to protect themselves, and I think we've seen a case where someone got killed. We've yet to verify in self-defense, and people are trying to protect themselves. I think there are other trends that we are seeing across the country. In Kwara, Kogi, there's a lot of vote buying going on. And
we'll speak to that. My apologies, Dr. Oluwatobi. We'll speak to that, but you know, this question of security or a lack of it, that people, the significance of it is quite telling. Well, we are happy, again, to reiterate that the Commissioner of Police in Lagos is perhaps now compiling information to talk to us, you know, later on today, to ensure that at least police is on top of its game.
And they're doing that aerial surveillance as well in Lagos.
Just to ensure, you know, things go the way it ought to go. We have a number of guests to bring up later, but speak to that very, very quickly. You know, the question that of the security and all of that. Yeah.
I think to be clear that the security of elections is in the hands of the police and the security services. So just like you rightly said, the head of police in Lagos is about to speak to us. Let's hear what they have to say, because a lot of people, there's a tendency that people then think, you know, it's INEC, but the elections are a multi-stakeholder engagement, and everybody has to play their role. The security services particularly have to play their role, and I think that there's a lot of fear, and rightly so, and suppression as well. But at the same time, there's still also lots of places where things are peaceful, and I think it's important that the security services communicate promptly so that people can have the peace and the comfort required to come out to vote, because I think it's having a big impact on turnout.
Yeah, you talked about it rightly also, that it's a multi-stakeholder engagement in terms of the security. Mr. Rigbabu, the question that I wanted to ask Olu, but I just wanted him to leave that environment because of its because I wanted to do that, is that, we understand that there are supposed to be at least 2 layers of security.
3.
There are supposed to be at least 2. One is the police unarmed. The second one is supposed to be an armed outer corridor. And then the third is to be the roving. Yes. Now, it's the roving that Olu just told us now, that they said that they can't stay with the policemen right there because they are not armed, and that they can only rove. It means that there is a layer of security missing, right?
Yeah, it means that there is a layer of security missing. It also, it's true that the roving one cannot stay in one place because it defeats the purpose. They are supposed to be, and it's also a police roving team. So they are supposed to be communicated. They should be like 5 minutes away from any spots. But the police guys are the polling units not carrying arms. Do not have walkie-talkie. You cannot rely on phone network to communicate and call for enforcement, and that is if they want to anyway. And my worry really started before even today, when we started to hear some communities calling for traditional rights, Oro, and all of that. I would have expected the IG, the police commissioner, to have come out strongly and said that none of that, because we are having an election that supersedes every other thing you think you want to do. the security business is that of the security agencies. We know traditional institutions have their role, but really in this business, we need the security agencies to be on top of the game. So because a lot of that were not addressed, the police didn't come out. So
the police yesterday did. The PPRO talked about it and said because this election is coming up, except you mean that it didn't come out as at the time the announcement was made.
As of last night, about 8 p.m. while I was still driving, there were still announcements on radio that traditional rites will happen in certain places from 12 midnight to 4 a.m. Don't move, don't. And when you look at Lagos traffic yesterday, for instance, I just hope that things have not happened that we are not aware of. Because that Lagos traffic yesterday, people will definitely get to their localities by 1 a.m. or thereabout. So some of these things should have been nipped in the bud. It's not necessary at all. Because you have heightened, people have been scared, So that probably explains, perhaps, at the end of the day, we'll see if it has had effect, but it's also possible that that has had effect on people's reluctance, to come out. And also people's trust that the police will live up to its responsibility. And the day is not gone yet, because this is the early part. We expect the police to up their game here. The military are around too, to support them. You see where your correspondence was, Olu, initially. It took the military, to actually come in. So they are there, but we need the police first to be the first layer of security for them to be able to call in reinforcement. Now we are going to move from here to the rack centers, and that's where this real game starts.
Okay. Well, it is still our studios for the 2023 verdict state elections. And don't forget to take Millicent's counsel earlier to take those pictures. That, yes, with us in your background, it'll be nice to see how you are, following events.
The conversation.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, it is about our lives. Many of us shouldn't forget that. It is not about the politician, it is about us, whichever way. Yeah,
somebody even said politics is too serious to leave it to politicians.
Yeah. Well, because, I'm still quarreling with that word, our rulers. Yeah. Anyway, well, that's not for us. With Dr. Oluwatola and Mr. Aribabu here, we've since been joined by three other gentlemen from two of our studios in the country. Dr. Saidu Ahmed Dukawa is lecturer, Department of Political Science at Bayero University. He joins us from our studios in Kano, along with Abdul Latif Abubakar Jos, who is a public commentator and publisher of Solace-based online newspaper. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Yeah.
most welcome.
Okay. We also have a security expert in the person of retired AIG Wilson Inalibu, who joins us from Abuja.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for joining us. Let me begin with you, Dr. Saidu Dukawa. You have been following the process, and we've taken quite some reports from Kano State as well this morning. What do you know? What do you have? What information do you have about the conduct of our people, the conduct of politicians, and conduct of the electoral umpire about the process so far?
All right. Thank you so much. I see. I have been following actually through the.
Dr. Dukawa, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello. How are you?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
All right. So I said I have been following the development since morning, especially through the local media, and the reports are quite encouraging. In many places, elections have started in good time, and people have been conducting themselves well. There are pockets of disturbances here and there, including my own point of voting. But within a short period of time, normalcy was restored, and I was able to vote peacefully and join you in this stadium.
Thank you. How about you, Mr. Abubakar Jos?
Thank you very much. The situation in Kano. This morning, I had to go around, apart from coordinating our reporters that are on field. You know, when we talk about election management or the election process, we talk about stakeholders that include the umpire, that is INEC. We talk about the politicians. We talk about the security agents. We talk about the electorates. So vis-a-vis, if you put all this together, there is a very large turnout of electorate as expected, because all along I've told a lot of fora in which I've spoken. I said, look, the presidential and the National Assembly elections are not being viewed from the perspective of the governorship and the state assemblies election, because the governorship and the state assembly election are local politics, whereby people are seeing the people that they are voting for. I mean, talking about the electorate. So early this morning, in most places, the INEC distributed election materials in good time. But be that as it may, at the rural areas, they have that challenges this morning, because even as of 10:30 in the morning, there were areas whereby there were no INEC staff, neither were there the materials. So in terms of logistics, there were a lot of challenges in that perspective. When we look at the issue of the security are well on ground. Security apparatus make sure that they give confidence to the electorate so that there won't be voter apathy. But there was a case in Kano this morning, that is around the Chirenchi area, which is Gwale and Kano Municipal. Gwale area happens to be where one of the governorship candidates comes from. And the Kano Municipal area also, we have where the chairman of one of the major political parties come from. Initially, they used to even be from the same voting point. But I think INEC in his wisdom separated that recently. So the tug of war in that area was so high. And that was where you have a bit of skirmishes this morning. And as I speak with you, the police have been able to arrest some, although as of this moment, the police have not confirmed it. But we saw it because there were some people that were caught with ballot papers, and there were fake observers also that were discovered. So you see, when you look at it, we have almost about 15 political parties participating in the governorship race in Kano, but there are about, I think, about 4 or 5 that are seriously main contenders, and when you narrow it down, it's like a 2-horse race. That is from the incumbent political party that is in the state and the leading opposition party.
Well, Mr. Abubakar Jos, we'll most certainly take it up on that, because, I mean, that's a security concern you just expressed to us. And we're just hearing now that in Katsina State, one bandit is said to have been set ablaze after he failed. His failed attempt to disrupt elections, to disrupt the election process along General Hospital in Batsari local government area of Katsina State. Eyewitnesses say the bandit, alongside another one, another co-conspirator such as himself, were intercepted by a team of security forces. One bandit said to be set ablaze after his failed attempt to disrupt the elections along General Hospital in Batsari local government area of Katsina State. Well, that raises naturally another angle to the entire conversation around election security, which takes us to you, AIG Wilson Inolegu, retired. This is Katsina State, and there are a number of other areas where we've heard all kinds of security attempts by various elements to disrupt the electoral process. What is your assessment so far about the entire process, but perhaps specifically speaking to the areas of concern that you have heard about? An example is that which happened with our colleague here, our correspondent Olu Phillips.
Well, when you make security provision for an election as huge as that of Nigeria, with over 93 million voters, you cannot completely keep it off incidents. They happen, but what do? You take every measure to prevent, to mitigate, and reduce to the barest minimum issues of security concern. And these issues that were planned for, that means you look at the threat analysis, you're able to develop strategies for dealing with those threats that may manifest during the process. And so the situation that we have, that I have watched your program all day, and I've also gone to read all about. I think on a general note, the situation around the country is calm and peaceful. Of course, there will be pockets of violence, such as the one you talked about in Katsina. I think there was a report about Amo Odofin in Lagos. But I think overall, because most of the officers under the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security are properly deployed at almost every polling unit. Of course, you have the issue of inadequate manpower, you have the issue of equipment, but by and large, effort has been made by the Nigerian Police Force and other security agencies to deal with those issues. And those who have attempted to disrupt the process, I think, have been arrested. But the visibility of the security forces at the polling units is quite impressive. Like you were discussing, those manning the polling units are not armed, but those in the outer perimeter, where you have the kind of critical mass that are there to respond when they are informed or there is a communication between them and those at the polling unit. But there is no way you can make security provision for such a huge event and you can completely keep it off incident. And that is why I say what you do is to, prevent, mitigate, and reduce to the barest minimum. But I think Nigerians are going about exercising their franchise peacefully. And I think they should be reassured. But then, starting from this time, especially from 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, when people begin to have an idea of where the election is swinging, that's when attempts will be made to disrupt the process. That's when attempts will be made to snatch ballot boxes, so that where they think they don't have advantage, they could disrupt and also suppress. So I think this is the time for proper situational awareness by the security agencies, particularly those officers deployed at polling units and those conducting patrols within the precincts or vicinity of the polling units. It's a time for vigilance. It's a time for quick response, to respond to any critical incident that will be brought to their knowledge. From this moment is a time for extra vigilance by all security agents deployed at the polling units and on patrols along the route, and near those places. Extra vigilance from this time to collation and all the rest of them.
All right, AIG, let's stay on this security issue with you. All lives matter by every standard, and we see incidents where people mention the word pockets of incidents, I'm sure you've mentioned that word as well. So I wanted to find out, by what parameter do security agencies adjudge a situation to be widespread enough to cause worry? Because I started with all life matters at the end of the day.
Of course, when you are making preparation arrangement to provide security for such an event, you want to totally eliminate any incident that could threaten the peaceful process, any violence that could threaten this. But when you make this preparation and you believe that you've taken unnecessary precaution, but from nowhere something can come up. Of course, you want to prevent anything that will affect all life, any life. But when we say pocket, when you don't have fire spread, by assuming now you have in Katsina, you are reporting somewhere in Katsina, you get another incident in Nasarawa, in Kano, and it's becoming a kind of connection, as if it is planned to be so massive and all that. But where you have isolated incidents and they don't appear to be widespread, then you can say that these isolated incidents, and then measures have been taken to address those. But when you don't have it on that scale that could threaten significantly the process, you could describe that as pockets of violence. And I think what we've had today from media coverage and other medium that I have been able to assess, I think the situation across the country is peaceful.
Ayo, sorry for cutting in. AIG, I wanted to find out from you still, I know we have a lot of guests to talk to, but since this is a security issue, my question perhaps has to do with places where analysis have been done in terms of security threats, and then these things have happened maybe in a 2019 election, and it is happening again in a 2023 election. And some person says that if it's the first time, it's an accident. A second time is coincidence. But when coincidence becomes excessive, it becomes deliberate, which is why if every time it happens, say in location A, say in 2019, it happens in location A, in 2023, maybe 3 times consecutively, and nothing is done, doesn't that kind of allow for impunity and people to just go and do whatever they want, knowing that it's just going to be another election where it's going to be categorized as pockets of incident yet again, because it's not as widespread as expected?
Yeah, but you know that they may not be happening in particular places. You have a situation whereby you have checkpoints along the highway, and say you have to record some incident. It's not that measures are not being taken, but the man will choose his target, and you do everything you can to be able to get him in the act or prevent him from coming. Of course, you could have had even much more incidents. I think it's because of the security strategy that have been crafted that are dealing with the situation. That's why we are sitting here to describe them as isolated. You see, unless you have the complete record, because it happened in Katsina, Katsina is a state, it doesn't mean that they're happening in the same locations. For example, when we talk about FCT, something could be happening around Kwali, and you take every measure along that route. You cannot say it cannot happen somewhere close to Zuba. But every measure is being taken. That is the situation.
Come back to Lagos and to our guest here, beginning with you, Mr. Irigwagbo. And this is the dimension we're seeing, moving from some of the pockets in Lagos, voter suppression, to, that extreme measure taken in Katsina, which just seems people taking, things into their own hands with that. And seeing as, some of the experts have also said the crucial moments, the crucial time is really what we're heading into, just a few minutes to 2 o'clock today, and that will be after the voting ends, the collation. What your expectations are for security agencies?
Yes, sincerely, I'm a bit worried by the report from Kaduna, especially the part that says that they were intercepted by security officials. So how did it then end up in being burnt? Because we also need to be careful. It's easy to commit a crime and label the victim.
Yeah,
And,
whatever name.
So that's really quite worrisome. But really, the Inspector General of Police at this time should be standing up to all his DIGs, his AIGs, his commissioners, and really pressing down their neck to step up the game. Because, I mean, like Jeffrey was saying, pockets of violence, it has huge implication, because when people hear that something is happening in Oshodi, the person is really, they may not want to come out, and that's scary for me. So I think the security needs to step up their game immediately. The military also perhaps needs to. And I'm not happy that I'm saying this, that the military needs to show more presence. It's quite unfortunate, not in 2023 should we be saying this, but it is our current reality, because we don't want any lives lost, and we do not want people being disenfranchised because of threats of violence. And if I may quickly push in for the people in VGC, I know that their protest is valid, but my personal advice would be that perhaps they should demand for more security and go use the location that INEC has given them, because there's no way INEC is going to come back to rerun that election, and they will not. They perhaps would have lost the opportunity to, express that protest through their vote. So it's just an advice. They probably know better, but then it's just the way
how does the law address that? Because there is first of all, there is a place where the list of voters is supposed to be pasted, and which is where the polling unit is. Yeah. But
so it might go to court, but I can tell you that it's not going to be part of the results that will determine the next governor in Lagos.
I want to take that question. That's before you weigh in. This is to Mr. Abubakar Jos also, about what kind of force do you think the police should be, doing now as we move, slowly, surely into that next stage?
If we look at it from, hello?
Yes, go right ahead. We can hear you.
If we look at it from the situation of what happened in Kano this morning, relatively, the security agent, their presence is well felt in the town. And in most of the polling areas, you can as well find adequate security. But we have to be very honest with ourselves in the instance whereby the security themselves, they compromise. There was a particular case this very morning whereby one of the political party leaders insisted in one of the local, talking about the local government in the metropolitan, insisted that if you are not voting for our party, you will not be allowed to vote here. And the security agents were there. The police were there. The sister agencies were there. Talking about the security agents, but they looked the other way around. What I'm talking about wasn't in a corner. It was in the open. It was close to the Emir's palace, where you find the two major political parties in Kano. Hello?
Can hear you.
This was.
So in that situation, when the security now said they were not aware, even we as journalists, we saw what happened. So that if you're not voting, the particular politician I'm talking about insisted that if you're not voting for our party, you will not be allowed to vote here. The security agents were there. The military were a bit far away, not very close to the polling unit. The police and others were there. So in that situation, they disenfranchised others who had the intention of voting for other political parties.
Well, Mr. Abubakar Jos, it sounds like exactly what you are talking about is what is alleged to have happened in Amuwodofe area of Lagos, where some video making the round says that which is of course sent by some of you watching, at Ifoshi Road area in Ejigbo and Unity Estate in Amuwodo in Lagos about their experiences today as they try to cast their votes in the governorship and House of Assembly elections. In the video, the speakers alleged intimidation and attacks by some thugs who stopped them from performing their civic duties. Authorities, particularly security agencies, need to look into this report of attacks as reported by some of our viewers. We are still expecting the Commissioner of Police in Lagos, who has promised to address us when these issues were raised with him earlier on. Well, let's listen to it.
This morning by something to 7, few minutes to 7. And then while I was there, I made few calls to get some people to bring seats for us so that we'll be able to sit down and canopy. And after some time, I saw one of the agents of a political party come in. I started making calls. After like 10 minutes, some talks came in. They came straight to me, telling me that we should forget about voting in our polling unit. That the polling unit is just the polling unit by Festac Link Bridge. That we are not going to vote. I asked him why. He said it's all more Igbo, that we can't vote in this place, that is not allowed, except if I want my car burnt or if I want to live here dead as a corpse. I said, okay. I turned my car facing the exit. They came and started breaking my car. They hit with their big stick. They hit me and broke my my mirror too. We equally went back there and they started beating me. Slapping me and hitting me. Is that how we're going to be one Nigeria? One can't be allowed to exercise his right as a citizen to vote. It's wrong. It's very bad. I don't like it.
So we got the under bridge. They say we should go back, that this is not our estate, that we are not going to vote there. So going back, some boys rushed me. I don't know if he has a stone with him. He hit me on the head. I started seeing blood. I have to fight back. So this is the blood on my body. So we met some staff. I don't know if they are INEC staff. They have some badge on them. They said, okay, that we should go back. We should leave them for now and go back. Now vote in my regime, but we should just go back.
In the polling unit in Ifoshi, they are driving away Labour Party supporters. They are flogging them and saying, if you can't vote APC, you go home. That's the situation here in Ifoshi council wards.
Well, Mr. Abubakar Jos, this is what you were talking about. You was talking about it happening where you are, but these are also things that we're receiving in Lagos now. So what would be your suggestion as to taking this further?
Honestly, the security agents need to up their game, because the security agents are supposed to give confidence to the electorate so that they won't be disenfranchised. An electorate that comes to vote believes that with the security agent around, he or she will be protected. But that was not what happened this morning that I'm talking to you about, because right there in the glare of everyone, the security agents were there, journalists were there, and the political party chieftain insisted that if you're not voting for this particular party, you will not be allowed to vote here. Even some electorate ballot papers were even torn. So the security agent just seems as if probably it was a normal situation.
Okay. Well, Mr. Abubakar Jos, thank you. Let me ask you, Dr. Dukawa, from your experience in the field of political science, one of the natural questions that will come to my own mind about that, Dr. Dukawa, is what level of political education do we have to get to before this can be reduced significantly? Because it seems we always come to this particular point. Dr. Dukawa, that's for you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yes, I said it's really quite unfortunate given the level of political sensitization that took place. There was a lot of mobilization, so many interest groups, so many stakeholders have participated in raising the consciousness of people, in calling upon people to be law-abiding, to avoid all forms of surgery, and so on and so forth. It's quite intriguing that these kind of reports are still being reported. But I think beyond political education, the larger part of the work needs to be done at the level of governance. Until and unless we attain the desired level of good governance, I don't think any form of political education will do in this kind of situation. By the time politicians consider governance as a matter of personal aggrandizement, so far as there will be abundant resources in the offices of politicians, and the day-to-day business of governance is suffering, so long as there will be this kind of cutthroat competition among politicians, and so long as there is cutthroat competition, so long there will be surgery and all forms of political violence, which we have been preaching against. So I think the incoming leadership is the one that needs the political education actually now, not just the ordinary electorates or even the political thugs that we are complaining about. Let the leadership deliver on good governance, and then you will find lesser corruption in the system, and then you will find lesser stiff competition regarding electoral posts, and then you will see that all these complaints have disappeared gradually. That's my take on that.
And Dr. Dakara, one wonders about the essence of, the peace accord. But we understand our correspondent, Olu Phillips, is also in Namuodof, in one of those areas. Just before we come back to you, Dr. Dakara, hold on. Olu Phillips, he is covering Namuodof area, and this is one of the areas we've just seen that video comments, eyewitness accounts of their experience, their voting experience, which turned sour earlier today. Olu, what has changed where you are right now?
Okay, so we are on Canit Street here off Agon Palace Way, which is just a link to Amuodofi. We're actually on our way to Amuodofi to get that switch. I don't know if my cameraman can help me. The papers you see littered on this floor and in this dirty water are papers from a polling unit, 008, and some hoodlums have attacked this polling unit. You can see that glass, they smashed the glass. The voting was going right, going good until this began to happen. The accreditation paper, everything torn in shreds. The voting paper, all torn in shreds. And I understand that the INEC officials had to take to their heels. Even the police woman that was attached to this place, I understand, had to run away because of the hoodlums who attacked this building. If you look at this stretch of the street, these are the number of people that have been disenfranchised from voting, and those who have voted, their votes may not count because it's all been torn away and turned into shreds. I'm going to talk to someone who can give us a valid information about what happened here earlier. Can you tell us what happened, please?
Okay, today we came to cast our votes as good citizens, but then before we knew, we had talks coming here with like bottles, canes. They were chasing people away from there. They kept on saying things like, "If you're not voting APC, get out of here. We're gonna kill you. We're gonna beat you." They started scattering everything. They scattered everything here. They were threatening people. They were breaking glasses. They were throwing stones, causing a mess. People started running from place to place because they were scared for their lives. Honestly, because if you wanna say, okay, yeah, you wanna die for your country. It's Nigeria even worth dying for.
No, but no, the Nigeria is worth dying for. But the question to ask is, what happened to the security person that was here when all of this was happening?
Well, the security personnel, they were not of much help, honestly. They're here to, like, make sure everyone is safe during elections, they were not of much help.
So what has happened to your ballot? What has happened to your votes? Is this going to count?
It's not going to count, as we all heard. It's not going to count. Okay, yeah, because they turned the materials, and then at the end of the day, the police you know, the police, yeah, they went away with the INEC officials and also with our beavers. So now they said the votes that were being cast here before the talks came would not be counted, meaning our votes here are invalid, which is very, very wrong, because we all came out in one. Some people even flew into the country to vote. Now our votes are being invalid just because of talks that they destroyed everything.
Okay, so this is the situation here on Waida Kani Street. We thought that we are not going to run into a situation where we'll find ballot box snatching. We had reported up till now that there has not been ballot snatching, but we've just reported one now here off Ago Palace Way, where a ballot has been snatched, and the votes here have been cancelled by way of being torn into shreds. And I mean, totally all the people that have here with the PPCs might not be able to continue this exercise because the INEC officials, both ad hoc and all of the those that have come to carry out this exercise today, have all fled. And it raises the question again, what we've been saying all day. We knew that places like this was going to be volatile. Now, so what happens to close to 200 to 250 people, I'm told, in this unit that try to vote? You can say this is INEC material. There's no INEC official here to take care of it. This is an INEC, this is a ballot box. This is another ballot box. Nobody here to count it. Nobody here to take care of it. There's no caretaker here as it were. All the papers on the floor. It's a sad situation here in Ago Palace Way.
And Olu, one also wonders, did they take off with the BVAS? Do we know what has happened to it?
So we understand that they didn't come with, shots were not fired, but stops were used, bottles were used, so people scampered for safety. And so the beavers in this unit has been taken away. The ballot papers have been torn and thrown on the floor. So there's technically and ultimately nothing to record anyone who had come out here to vote today. There is no record except that beavers is recovered.
That was taken away by the thugs or were taken away by the officials of INEC?
Yeah, by the thugs, we're told, by the thugs.
Well, one wonders. Anyway, as we've often said, just keep safe, and please counsel everyone around there to please keep safe, because at the end of the day, yes, you're right, Nigeria is worth dying for, but we should all take the counsel of former President Jonathan that the blood of no Nigerian's blood is worth the election of any Nigerian. Thank you so much, Olu, for your reporting.
It's quite shocking to see that the new target now, they could leave the ballot papers, but they go away with the beavers. Because at the end of the day, beavers is the primary source of verification, primary source of evidence for anything that happens at that polling unit. I know you were talking to Professor. Before we go back to him, I know that you've been following up on your guys in the field and situation as well when it comes to this security
issue.
Sorry,
Geoffrey, if you don't mind, my sincere apologies, because I know I'm also angling to hear what Dr. Luatola has to say, but being a security issue now, and being the fact that the policemen, as we heard our correspondent say, have not been able, well, they had to walk away with these INEC officials. Can we quickly ask Ms. Ainalegu's position on all of these?
Well, it's very troubling that this could happen almost in the heart of Lagos. But I think the officers who were deployed in that area shouldn't have allowed this to happen. And I think the Commissioner of Police Lagos will be looking critically at this incident. First of all, how many were the officers deployed at that polling unit who allowed this to happen? I want to believe that the police must have gone with both the INEC officials and the beavers machine. If they went there to evacuate INEC officials, I think they would have also gone with it. But at this stage, we cannot say. I think where this happened, we should have had enough response, enough warning indicating that this could take place. I think there is more to this, but the situation that I watched on television is very troubling, and it shouldn't have been allowed to happen. But I believe that the Commissioner of Police Lagos, a smart young man, must be talking to the officers who are deployed within that vicinity. This is purely, the election is a civil process. The incident that happened by these illegal substance users should not be allowed to happen. And so what I expect the Commissioner of Police will do is to interview the officers that were deployed to that area, to give him an account of what happened. And if they were found culpable, I think different action will be taken against them. And I think INEC should not allow these people to succeed, because the election in this place, I would recommend, should be repeated and more security provided. People like this should not get away. An arrest must be made. And I believe that Idu, CP Lagos, is not going to just allow this go. And I think it's going to look at within that area. I'm sure within that area you will discover that there must have been some Igbo and other users. All the enclave, everywhere around there will be raided, and I think arrests will be made. And I pray that our justice system, which sometimes is slow, will act swiftly. Because if you have weak social control, such impunity can happen. And I think whoever made this attempt should be made to face the full wrath of the law, so it doesn't happen. It's unfortunate, and I want to appeal to the voters there to continue to remain calm, but the police will act, and other security agencies will act.
All right, AIG.
Unfortunate.
AIG, we're going to come back to you pretty soon, because it appears we have a lot of concerns when it comes to security issues. But let's head to Rivers State, Port Harcourt. Let's just say Rivers State now, where Charles Oporoma, our correspondent, is standing by to bring us the latest update from there. Charles?
Yeah, hi, Jeff. I'm standing by. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Charles, we can hear you. We can see you clearly. So where are you at the moment? Are you still in Gukana or Kana? You've left that area?
Okay. Right now, I am back to Port Harcourt, the capital city. I am in front of the INEC Rivers State headquarters along Aba Road here. If you look behind me, you will see a crowd of people, and you may be wondering what is happening here. Why is there a crowd of people here? Well, what I understand is that these are the guys that are going to be serving as collation officers. They are waiting for their posting. Some of them have received the appointment letters, but they do not know where they are going to be posted to. And it's quite interesting because some of them are going to be posted to places as far away as Bonny, where you have to cross water to go. And one wonders why, they struggle to get them posted. You see how you can see them, they are following the INEC official to get a posting. But that is, by the way, earlier today I was in Ogoniland, I was at Kana local government, I was in Gokana local government, and of course I was also at Eleme local government, to mention but a few of the local governments I visited, and everywhere I visited, really everything was going smoothly, except for a little disturbance in Bori. Bori is the headquarters of Kana local government. When I got to Bori, I discovered there was some kind of protest, some kind of disagreement, and I spoke to a few of the people who were protesting there, and I discovered some people were complaining that they had issues with the electoral materials. They complained about the beavers. They said they were alleging at the time that there may have been issues with the beavers. I tried to talk to the electoral officer there. He refused to speak to me on camera, but he told me that there was nothing wrong with the beavers, and it was a misunderstanding from some of the party agents during their inspection, when he allowed them to inspect the electoral materials. And indeed, some other party agents from some other parties said the same thing. They said, no, it was just a mere misunderstanding, But eventually, they deployed materials in Bori, and voting started at the time I left there to return to Bera, where I had been earlier. And at Bera, I saw one of the governorship candidates, Senator Magnus Abbey, votes, and he left, and it was a smooth process right there. I haven't witnessed anything untoward so far during my tour of the states, especially in Ogoniland, in Rivers Southeast Senatorial District, where I've been all through since morning.
All right, Charles, I know that from Gokana, or Kana, where you're coming from, you should have passed through maybe Tai and Eleme, and then passed through Obiakpo, some part of Obiakpo, Rumola, artillery area, down to Port Harcourt. So you have a fair understanding of like 4 local governments just because you transited all the way from Gokana down to Port Harcourt. So what did you see on your way from this local government, Tai, Eleme, Obiakpo, and now to Port Harcourt local government?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. If you are heading towards Ogoni area, which is in Rivers Southeast Senatorial District, you will definitely have to pass through Eleme local government area, Tai local government area, Gokana local government area, and Kana local government areas. Of course, I took off from Obiakpo local government area, where the headquarters of INEC is. In some places, the very first place I stopped at was a place called Nteo village in Eleme. At the time when I got there, which was at about 8:30, 8:35 a.m., no electoral materials had arrived at that moment. I think I filed that report in at the time, and I spent like 10-15 minutes there interacting with some of the community, members of the community, and they were patient. They said yes, they know that it's not an easy process deploying, but they were very, very optimistic that the materials would come because they were in touch with their colleagues at the RAC centers. And then, of course, I got to, like I said before, I got to Kana, I got to Gokana, and on my way back, I stopped at Alisa in Eleme local government area, where I saw voting happen. But one thing that struck me is the level of voter apathy. The level of voter apathy it's significant I mean, it's quite significant because I saw a lot of people playing football on the roads. The roads are empty. So you would, along Akbajo area of Port Harcourt, you would see people, they will mount tires in the center of the road, young boys, playing football. And there was a place where I stopped to observe what was happening. I saw an elderly woman talking to them and asking them to go and vote. And they were just very despondent. They were saying their votes wouldn't count, and so there was no need for them to go out and vote, and they are here to play football, So I witnessed this a couple of times at about 3 different places in the city. But in the villages, the situation was a bit different. Yes, there was voter apathy, but I did not really see people, playing football while voting was happening. So that is the situation here in Rivers State, the places where I covered, Rivers Southeast.
All right, Charles, our eyes on Rivers State, as you know, of course, like every part of the country, but we'll get back to you for more development. So just keep safe and keep watching and keep giving us the information that you have available to you. Let's bring it back to the studio to Oluwatobi. You've seen everything that has happened, the security issue in Lagos, and of course, we're expecting the Commissioner of Police to provide some answers at the end of the day. But you've also heard from Rivers State how things are panning out as well. So what are your thoughts, but especially when it comes to security?
Yeah, on the security issue, when the day started, I started on a very optimistic note because at the time, we had not started to see the sort of attacks that we've seen at this point. Just now, I'm receiving information from our observers that at least 7 of our observers on the field have been attacked in various states: Osun State, Akwa Ibom, Sokoto, and in Borno State as well. And we're now trying to contain that situation. And the worst thing that that could happen is that we now have a case where the eyes who are on the field, the media people, the journalists who are covering these things, have to now withdraw for their own safety, and there's no telling what will happen if there is no sort of third-party accountability going on. So it's important that the security services, show up and do something about that. And in many cases, these attacks happened because these observers were capturing videos and pictures of irregularities happening, vote buying, things like harassment of voters, and because they were doing that, observers are being attacked in various parts of the country.
Isn't it actually rather painful, Mr. Aribabu, you know, that these things are happening right now? How significantly that will affect things, I guess it's something that we'll wait to see, but we'll come back to you. Wanted to take up the country.
Yes, I did, and this is Dr. Dukawa, what I mentioned earlier. What is the essence then of the signing of the peace accord?
Yes, that reminds me about the peace accord. Actually, the peace accord has become a mere ceremony. Actually, there has not been any evidence that somebody has been punished for wrongdoing over the time that the peace accord has been signed. So as far as the electoral process is concerned, that peace accord needs to be given the attention it deserves by way of having a system of enforcement regarding any infringement on the covenant made during this thing. But this is to underscore my first point, that this is about the electoral process, and there is no way we can achieve the desired level of electoral process, I mean in terms of its acceptability and excellence, until and unless we have good governance. So, so while we are working towards improving the electoral process through the voter education, through the activities and discharge of role by stakeholders, especially INEC and security agencies, through enforcement of the terms and conditions of the peace accord, but then we really need to pay attention to good governance. So long as politicians continue to have access to unlimited resources, which accrue as a result of non-performance, so long as the competition to that offices will be a cutthroat competition, and therefore we need to really attack the situation, that is, address the situation from the two fronts.
Mr. Abubakar Jos, we've been talking about the fact that we need to call out security agencies to up their game and all. But these agents that are being talked about, they are agents of political parties. Is there a way that the authorities of the different political parties, particularly the prominent ones, can call their wards or their authorities or whatever layers of authority to call them and ask them to do the needful in the interest of Nigeria? This process happens just once in 4 years. Mr. Abubakar Jos.
Thank you very much, Ayo. If you look at it, an average politician is self-centered. When we talk about Nigeria, for instance, because they're mostly just concerned about the end, not a means to the end. That is, let the end justify the goals. That is the way they've mostly been doing things. Because if that is not the situation, you will be surprised that the leading political parties that we're talking about presently, one way or the other, they've been part of the same party all along. Because what are we talking about? The two major political parties, the APC, the PDP, gave birth to other opposition parties that exist as of this moment. So if you look at it from that angle, they signed a peace accord and they've expressed commitment that they're going to abide by the peace accord. But on while the action is ongoing, I mean on the field, we realize that it's totally different from what they are doing. What are we talking about? The security.
Just one moment, if you can speak to this as well. We've often asked, Channels Television often asked the question, there's one set of people that signed the peace accords, whether or not it percolates the peaceful intentions to which the principals signed, percolates down the ladder. That's another conversation, isn't it?
Yes, that does happen because there has never been a situation. Let's take it. Let's go back since 1999 to date. Has there been any situation whereby any chieftain of a political party has been prosecuted for acts being done by their party? We've seen it in Kenya. We've seen it in Kenya, whereby even the sitting president was taken to ICC to answer criminal charges. But we've never had that in Nigeria, because you just find out that at the end of the day, immediately after the result of the election is announced, and the winner is the president-elect, the governor-elect, the House of Assembly member-elect, the next thing you start seeing is congratulatory messages. We are not evaluating and interrogating how this came about. We are not looking at who does what and what should be done. On most occasions, those that are facing electoral offenses, crime, they are mostly the thugs, not the real political gladiators. So when we have that, how will it not repeat itself? Just about 3 weeks ago, we had a situation, we had the presidential and the National Assembly election, just about 3 weeks ago. And we saw what happened in that situation. So, what is the difference from what the security agents have been able to put in place from 3 weeks ago and what we have on ground now? So, the quarrel is, or the crux of the matter is the fact that the political gladiators are never brought to book to account for their acts.
Well, that's a salient point to make there, Mr. Abubakar Jos. But let me bring it back to Lagos here in our studio and talk to Mr. Aribabu. Well, you've been listening and definitely angling to speak, and I'm almost certain you're getting reports from here and there as well. Where do we go from here? One of the questions that comes to my mind is how significantly or not this entire conversation we've had so far questions the legitimacy and the progress that we have made. 20 years now, 24 years into this Fourth Republic.
Yeah, it's quite disheartening. Definitely these reports from here and there affect the legitimacy, at least in the eye of the people. Perhaps in the eye of the law, it might be said that it's not significant enough. But your colleague mentioned earlier, what quantum do we measure what is significant? I mean, this whole thing that we're seeing, it's caused to question the legitimacy of the president. And it's quite unfortunate. And I agree with Mr. Abubakar Jos that the fact is that because there's impunity, because nobody really gets to account, if you just punish a few people, thugs can actually take the rap. They can go to jail for a fee. But we need people of substance, so-called, people of substance who fund some of these things to actually be brought to book. And personally, I think that signing peace accord really is an insult to us as a people. What we need is proper law enforcement. What we need is to actually prosecute election crime committers. What we need is a system that disabuses impunity. We need people to pay for the crimes that they cause or the crimes that they sponsored. We are really never going to get to the main guys at the top unless on a very rare situation. But there are people who are heavily invested in the election process, who are heavily invested in the violence. Some of them you're seeing either by video, some of them by their statements, some of them by statements of those who have been arrested.
Well, that raises another question, Mr. Aribabu, and I'm pretty sure that our next guest will be talking to that, but for now?
Yes, now let's head back to Kano with our guests. We're having our closing moments with our guests, Dr. Saidu Dukawa and also Mr. Abdul Lateef Abubakar Jos. And this is to get your closing moments, as your final thoughts on this process, on your expectations as well. We've heard some of our guests talk about this is a transient democracy, and this is part of the process, the learning, and also some of the things that we're gaining from this. But then, what would be those concluding thoughts? This is as we wrap up, the elections today. Dr. Dukawa, let's begin with you.
Yes. Actually, when you look at the entire process, you can still give a pass mark regarding what's happening. Surely the issues that are raised are of concern, are of serious concern that need to be addressed. But overall, we can say we are making progress, because when you compare the kind of, shall we say, fear that was exercised before the election, before the day of the election, and what is being reported during the day of the election, you will see that there is a great deal of separation of all those fearful tendencies. So while we are recording progress, we actually need to keep on thinking of how best to improve the system. We need to now set our mind regarding the outcome of the election. In fact, once the elections are concluded and an outcome announced, then what follows actually is what will determine the final thing. So I think acceptance of the outcome of the election is one thing which needs to be considered seriously in the next couple of years. Especially that peace accord should include something that will cover acceptance of outcome of result, because the kind of competition that is going on also threatens the outcome of the result. So much so that the competing parties, each is thinking of winning necessarily. So, and that is also an aspect that needs to be addressed. So overall, if we succeed in crossing this bridge, I think we can say kudos to our democracy.
To you, Mr. Abubakar Jos.
Thank you very much. You see, when we look at it, our democracy is nascent, because we started in 1999. Vis-a-vis, we are growing. But nevertheless, we shouldn't always live under the cloud of we are growing. We should be able to reassess ourselves and correct anomalies so that tomorrow will be much better than what we're having today. For instance, when we talk about the process, the introduction of the beavers, the introduction of the IREV, the introduction of so many technology to improve the process of the electoral system is very good and commendable. When we look at even the security apparatus being put in place, but what we need to look at is, we sign peace accord, we sign peace agreement. Those that signed, just like Ayo said, those that signed the peace accord are not the same people that commit the electoral offenses on the field, because those that committed the electoral offenses on the fields are mostly those that are arrested are mostly the political thugs. But what about the gladiators? We should have a situation whereby the peace accord should be effected to the latter, whereby any infringement, there should be people that will account for what they've done, that is their action. If we can have that, it will reduce the level of impunity that we mostly have in our polity. Thank you very much.
Thank our guests in our Kano studios, Dr. Saidu Ahmad Dukawa, Lecturer, Department of Political Science, Bayero University, and yourself, Abdul Latif Abubakar Jos, public commentator, publisher, Sunday-based online newspaper, Kano. Thank you both for joining us today.
I am most obliged.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, very interesting. Well, let's ask Mr. Wilson Enalegu about this whole, who is still with us. Well, you heard, I'm pretty sure you did, Mr. Arigbabu talking about the fact that hitherto there hasn't been consequences for, should I say, consequences for bad behavior, especially concerning this whole electoral process. Consequently, anything that happens, the people who are committing this heinous crimes will just continue simply because nothing has been done. Now, we know that, it's always that back and forth between the police and the Independent National Electoral Commission about electoral offenses and all, but it is also the reason why these things continue to happen. We're going to do it, nothing is going to come out of it, and then it just continues. So what would be your recommendation, especially concerning this one? We shouldn't just let this one slide.
Yeah, you're not too loud. But if I got you right, I didn't quite. Can you come a bit louder?
Well,
if you don't mind.
Consequences for electoral offenses over time. Mr.
Yes.
Aribabu mentioned it the other time. So should we also let this one slide as well? Because it's been happening.
Yeah, there should be consequences for electoral offenses, particularly violence. But we've got to deal with the legislation, because the situation we have today is the police will investigate and INEC will prosecute. I think that's a little bit cumbersome. I think the police should conduct in-depth investigation into every electoral offense, be it vote buying or committing violence, and being involved in conspiracy to commit electoral violence. And I think if we have in-depth investigation, we're able to go to the very root. And if we get to the root, we look at whoever is connected, either remotely or otherwise, and action is taken against such persons. Because if we don't do that, we're going to have repeated events. What has just happened will have other effect. And the way to stop it is to nip it in the bud, that these guys who come out should not be allowed to carry out violence. And when should they carry it, and arrests are made, they must be made to face the full wrath of the law. If we do that, we are going to change the narrative. Otherwise, it will be repeated. People will carry money to the polling station, buy votes, nothing happens. People go kill, and then it's so weak in dealing with it. But in doing this, and I think there should be active messaging by the security forces to the public to talk about the effects and consequences of such conduct. If we do that, we are going to make our communities safer. I think in addition to having other legal consequences, we've got to carry a lot of messaging to the public, because some of these people who do this, they are poor, and these privileged elites take advantage of them, give them money, very small money to go and cause havoc. Some of them don't even know the consequences of this action. So we need proper education.
That you've taken into the conversation, Mr. Enalegu, and I sincerely hope that both the lawmakers who are returning and the ones who are coming into the National Assembly will understand the enormity of their job descriptions and perform accordingly. But Geoffrey, we need to go to Ogun State, right?
Yes, we understand. Chris Ilems is standing by to bring us some update from Ogun State. Chris, what has changed?
Nothing much has changed. We left Abeokuta and now we are in Obafemi Owode local government area. This is actually Ajura ward, and if you go look at the time, it's past 2:30, and in this ward they are ready to start sorting, collating, and of course counting of the ballots. For a lot of them here, they've given kudos to INEC for doing a yeoman's job this time around. I spoke with a few of them who said that they came in here as early as possible, and of course the polling booths were already getting set up. They started in good time at 8:30 a.m. and right now it's 2:30. They are ready to start counting. Actually, you know, earlier on when I came, someone asked me, I think it was you, Jeffrey, why a lot of movement at the background. You know, every hour actually unfolded lot of events, because just after that interview, a lot of security presence, you know, became scattered just across the state. There were a lot of them. All the junctions were blocked, and so movements were completely restricted. I'm talking about members of the police, the armed forces. They were all out to ensure that no movement, so that movement was fully restricted. And well, it's been quite peaceful. It's been quite peaceful, except in a few of the wards where we saw people writing names, and we really didn't know what they wanted to do with that. But you see party agents in some of the wards writing names, and a lot of people felt that it was just a precursor to vote buying. Then somewhere around Remo, that we came around Remo as well, and some arrests were made from time to time, you know, of people with food items. I remember there was a vehicle that was stopped, like a minivan that was stuffed with food stuff. The police actually arrested that vehicle because they felt it was going to be used for vote buying as well. And just some little, you know, flashes of challenges, conflict here and there, you know. But then, largely, it was peaceful. We have Ajayi is with me. Ajayi actually voted at Jura Ward, and he came here as early as 8:30. You voted, Ajayi. Just give us an impression of what really happened today in this Ajura Ward.
Generally, it's been peaceful. The INEC officials, they came earlier enough, around 8:30 in the morning, and accreditation started as early as 8:30. So people came, people trooped out, they voted and they left. A lot of people didn't stay here. It's only few that are staying after voting. So they stayed. Polling booth 1, it was peaceful. Generally, I would say it is peaceful, credible, it is fair. So the only challenge that I can say about polling booth 2 is the beavers, after voting for some time, the beavers stopped working for like 2-3 hours. They called their technicians, engineers, they came, they rectified it, and it was working perfectly. So people started voting again. So the voting continues. All I can say generally is that the election is peaceful. It's peaceful, very, very peaceful.
Okay, I can see that sorting has actually started. I'm sure Soji would be able to give us what is actually happening at the moment. Sorting has started, and very soon they would start counting. I spoke with one of the POs here who said that this time around they got more people coming out to vote. That unlike the presidential election where they recorded about 113 in one of the polling booths here, that today they've counted as much as 180 persons that came out to vote in the same polling booth. So right now you can see some of the party agents, they are actually looking at what is happening at the moment. There are 2 of the polling booths in this ward, in this polling zone, Jura Ward, in Opafemi or Wode local government area. So, Soji, you just help us. Let's have a bit of what is happening here.
So I guess those are, you know, pictures of the sorting that's ongoing. We can see the INEC staff there bringing out the ballot papers, and people around waiting and watching the process. Someone asked me, saying that is staying part of making your vote count?
Oh, yes.
Staying there, perhaps 300 miles away.
Yeah, it's the Nigerian that is now policing their own votes. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your reporting. We'll definitely come back to you in the course of time. But we have a number of grounds to cover, Chris, just before we go here.
Yes, so,
a couple of other things are happening around us, Chris. So don't worry, we'll still come back to you. I'm certainly we'll come back to you in a little while. But right now we need to.
We must say that the exercise is expected to have ended.
Yeah,
at several polling units. This is already to 3.
But for as long as there are people on the queue.
Yes, I'm saying expected to, because places for the National Assembly, for instance, sorry, the state assemblies. So the numbers may not be quite large for a certain place. We should, in the next few hours, we have a call of who won and who did not.
Yeah, but
I think crucially also all eyes will now be on the IREV. I'm just really looking forward to that.
My IREV is open.
It is already.
Okay. Well, it's still reading 0.
No, of course, it has to read 0.
We're having more updates. Let's quickly go to our correspondent Shola Shuele, who's also bringing us this update in Lagos.
Say that they got here this morning only to be told that their polling booths had been moved outside all 8 polling booths, all 8 polling units, with 2 others that were traditionally outside. All 10 have now been moved to outside of the VGC estate. They complained that they were not comfortable with the process, with this outcome, because it could be hijacked by elements, it could be hijacked by anybody, and they were not comfortable voting outside of the estates. And that was the situation. No side was backing down. INEC was not backing down. The residents were not backing down. The INEC officials stayed outside of the gate, insisting that that was where elections were going to take place. And the residents also did not back down. This was the situation until about 1 p.m. when the INEC rec for Lagos, Mr. Segun Agbaje, got here and addressed the residents. They brought him here to the park and showed him the arrangements that they had put in place to ensure that the process went smoothly. And apparently convinced, he told them that voting could start at 2 p.m. and end at 7 p.m. Now, there are concerns about whether there won't be disenfranchisement of voters when you have about 6,000 voters to vote within a period of 5 hours. But for now, the residents have spoken to themselves. They've agreed that they should at least start voting. And when 7 o'clock comes, we'll take it from there. It's a developing story, and we'll keep you updated with more information as we get them. Shola Shieli, Channels Television.
Well, thank you so much, Shola. Well, that is that and a number of other things that we'll most certainly bring to you. But we understand that there is a guest standing by for us in Canada.
Yes, indeed. We'll be soon be joined by Mr. Aminu Sani Mohammed. He's an election observer with the Nigeria Bar Association. He'll be talking to us about his experience in Kano in a short while. But I'm wondering, with all of this that's happening, what's happening on social media? Because I know for the presidential election, there was, the whole gamut of information online. We talked about disinformation, misinformation. Dr. Oluwatola, what do you think is happening online? What are your sources? What are they saying?
So thank you very much for that question. There's a lot of hysteria online about the security situations, and there's a lot of disinformation happening as well. We saw yesterday, or late yesterday, the disinformation around some party candidates stepping down or being asked to step down by the Supreme Court, which we now know was false. And so people have to be vigilant with what they see online and what's happening online. But altogether, the tone online seems to be quite grim about the security situation across the country, and in some cases justifiably so.
Yeah, but I want to ask you both gentlemen a question the other time, and I think it's something that had to do with what Mr. Enolegu said concerning the elections. And so we have more than 176,000 polling units all over the nation. However, if we divide each state's polling units, one will have, say, 5,000, the others will have 8,000, some less than that, no.
Some more than that.
Some more, some less. Now, the question is really around the validity or authenticity or credibility of the election in terms of the population of votes that remain valid, given all these reports that we are having.
Yeah.
You know, excuse me. What percentage of votes cast or not will invalidate the entire process in a particular state? Jeffrey earlier on was telling us that in some states, the process was suspended and all of that. At what point are we likely to get to that so that politicians and their cronies will know that there is consequence for every action?
Absolutely. I think that there is there is certainly a provision where there is severe suppression for INEC, the INEC collation officer, to reschedule voting in certain areas. And when it doesn't do that, the parties can go to court to get an injunction to say that there's been significant enough suppression to warrant.
So that is on the political parties?
On the political parties.
Okay.
It's on
Let's quickly go back to
Ogun State.
A colleague, Ogun State, in Ogun State, Chris Ilens. Yes, Chris, I told you we would come back to you, so here we are. What's new?
Oh, okay. Right now, the sorting has started, as we told you earlier on. You see from behind me, these are some of the party agents. They are actually waiting. I met one of them, Ajayi, who voted as early as 8 a.m. or 8:30, but has waited till this time. Ajayi is standing with me. Ajayi, you waited till this time. Just give me a reason why you had to wait.
Basically, I must say that I have to wait because of the fact that I think this is my civic responsibility, and I think I just have to come here and vote, and I believe that my vote will count.
We learned that in some polling units there were issues of vote buying. Did you experience that here?
Basically, I must confess, beyond every reasonable doubt, that we didn't have such occurrence here.
Though, are you real? Because you must confess beyond all reasonable doubt. I want to be sure. I mean, is there an underlying statement?
I can tell you in clear terms, if we've had issues like vote buying and all that, I am very sure my fathers and my mothers that are here will have raised issues, and nobody will want such to happen in this world. So I must tell you that by and large, we've never recorded any form of vote buying in any form, be it food items, be it in cash, be it in anything.
But did you hear that in some places there were vote buying?
Well, I can say specifically that I didn't hear, but over the social media, I've been able to go on Facebook and all that. I learned that in some places, arrests were made and all stuff like that. So I might not be able to, in social media we have some stories that are true, and at the same time we have stories that are not true. So I cannot really say, I cannot verify that the information whether there are vote buying or not.
All right, thank you so very much. So one of the voters from Ajura Ward who actually stayed from the, early morning when he voted, he stayed till this time and is waiting for the voting or the counting to begin. It's already started. I just want you to look at it briefly. I hope my cameraman can see what is happening right now. Maybe we should just, I'll just keep quiet a little, and so you can hear what is happening at the background. So sorting already going on. Here they recorded much more than they did during the presidential election. They recorded more people voting here, and also with the second polling booth in this Ajura ward.
Well, we're hoping that
it's quite a process.
We're hoping. I was actually
is.
hoping that we could get Chris, the cameraman, to get as close as possible. So at least on television today, right here, we'll be able to get live pictures of sorting and counting.
I think we're coming back and forth, but then we are following what's going on there in that particular ward where our correspondent is Chris Elems, and we'll come back to him. But the other things happening in other parts of Lagos, and this is following protests of voter suppression. Residents of the Onireke area, this is opposite Ojo cantonment, they've taken to the streets to protest the attacks they faced in the hands of alleged thugs. This is an eyewitness video. Members of a crowd can be seen there and also heard in a short while chanting, "We must vote," in what seems to be an attempt at resisting disenfranchisement.
I just want to talk to Dr. Oluwatobo. Can you speak to the resilience of people vis-a-vis the security threats that people are experiencing in parts of the state and across the country?
Yeah, I think the people are really standing up to it in many parts of the country. As you can see in that video, people coming out to say we must vote, and I think that's a positive thing for our democracy. And there are parts of the country, and I also must comment on this, where we see that in some cases the attack on the people is by the security agents themselves. We had a case where someone was arrested in Oyo State, one of the media observers, and we're working to have him released now. And I think it's important to stress that the police committed to protecting the people and not to being tools of the powers in the parties in power. And we've got to continue to resist and flag when that happens, because it's important that what's supposed to protect you doesn't become your biggest enemy.
Well, we understand that the vote counting has begun, as you can see right there in Ogun State. But while that is going on, Mr. Rigbabu, these issues that you have raised, what's your I know that you have a thing or two to say.
Yeah,
so just 1 second, let's hear what's going on right now.
If it's number 26, if it's number 27, if it's number 28, if it's number 29, if it's number 30. For ADP number 1, just one. For AAC, it's number 1, it's number 2. For ADC, we have ADC number 1, ADC number 2, ADC number 3, ADC number 4, ADC number 5, ADC number 6, ADC number 7, ADC number 8, ADC number 9, ADC number 10, ADC number 11, ADC number 12, Edis number 13. Edis number 14. Edis number 15. Edis number 16. Edis number 17. Edis number 18. Edis number 19. Edis number 20. Edis number 21. Edis number 22. Edis number 23. Edis number 24. Edis number 25. Edis number 26. Edis number 27. Edis number 28. Edis number 29. Edis number 30. Edis number 31. Edis number 32. Edis number 33. Edis number 34. Edis number 35. Edis number 36. Edis number 37. Edis number 38. Edis number 39. Edis number 40. Edis number 41. Edis number 42. Edis number 43. Edis number 44. Edis number 45.
Well, that's it's a process that it's still continuing. We'll go back to it in a bit, but we have to close this segment at this time. Well, Mr. Arigbabu, your counsel at this juncture. I can't ask for one sentence. I will only give you 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. Counsel, like you said, appeal. And first it will be to INEC. Please, you appear to be ticking the right boxes. But please, this is where it gets really interesting because we are going to the rack and then your IRF should not fail you. And if you have problem with it, please communicate. I'm happy that the Lagos rec went to resolve the VGC. So INEC should be up and doing, should be, But for the police, please help arrest the situation in most of the places and at least get evidences through which we can prosecute electoral offenders.
Okay. Dr. Oluwatola.
3 weeks ago, the big gap in credibility for the elections was the IREV, and a lot of people felt like anything could have happened between the polling units and when elections were announced. So for this year, this cycle, a few civil society organizations led by Enough is Enough have put together a platform where citizens can go and upload the results from your polling units and also compare with what comes out of IREV. So it's called ootcresults.com. So go there, upload your results, and compare what IREV comes out, and let's work together to make our elections accountable.
All right. That's quite some work. But we have to thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of our conversation this morning. Dr. Toby Oluwatola is Executive Director, Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development. Thank you so much for your time, as well as Sulaiman Arigbabu, who is Secretary General, Header Resource Center. We truly appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, we leave you with this process ongoing in Ogun State.
Indeed, the counting there. Of course, the conversation continues. The 2023 verdict. Still looking forward to getting your pictures.
Say thank you to the AIG Wilson in Alago.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Well, that's it for us, but the verdict continues. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga.
I'm Millicent Walker.
And I'm Aya Makinde. Please stay with us. More to come. Let's go back to Ogun State.
PDP number 22. PDP number 23. PDP number 24. number 25, PDP number 26, PDP number 27, PDP number 28, PDP number 29, PDP number 30, PDP number 31, PDP number 32, PDP number 33, PDP number 34, PDP number 35, PDP number 36, PDP number 37, PDP number 38,